So there's a very short quote here by Zoketsu Fischer, who I believe is some kind of Zen master. And it is this very pithy, um, this sort of very pith kind of instruction that sort of speaks to sort of the magnitude of gratitude that we can have. Yeah? We consider gratitude to possibly be just as boundless as the Brahma Vihara blessing. And he tells us, Zoketsu Fischer tells us, we are sitting within the Buddha's heart. Let us release ourselves to the aspect of this glorious mind that deeply belongs to the universe. And let us be grateful for it. We are sitting within the Buddha's heart. Let us release ourselves to that aspect of this glorious mind that deeply belongs to the universe. Let us be grateful for it. So I really very much love that instruction. And it's interesting that gratitude in Buddhism, it's not always expressly stated as a particular Dharma principle. Yeah, it's hard to find on lists of precepts and beneficial states and consciousness forms and such. And yet, gratitude is ubiquitous throughout Buddhism. Nonetheless, it is embedded at the heart of so many of the teachings. And one of the reasons that I thought, it might be nice to think about gratitude, not just because next Thursday is Thanksgiving, but also that it is fundamentally an aspect of mindfulness practice, especially insofar as mindfulness involves loving kindness. After all, it is, I think, very hard to be truly mindful if there is no kindness, no gentleness, no generosity of spirit, and it can be just as challenging to be kind in this way without gratitude. So if we consider that gratitude is deeply embedded within the teachings of Dharma, naturally embedded there, it may be then that when someone says, hey, we should be more grateful for this or for that, they may be right. I hear myself tell myself that frequently. Gratitude has never come easily for me because I've often been in the scarcity mindset for a lot of my earlier life. Yeah, not enough of this, needing more of that. Why isn't this happening? Why, blah, blah, on and on. So much can be complained about. So much scarcity, so much deprivation, which is a mindset. Yeah, makes it nearly impossible to be grateful, I think. So, for me, I'll share with you some of the things that have been really helpful for me to transform that and really consciously practice much more ubiquitous gratitude. It's a game changer. And one is to take the moral obligation out of it. This is a Buddhist approach, yeah? Is gratitude something you should do or else? Is it something you'll get judged for if you don't have? Well, maybe, but certainly not by Dharma teachings. So it's first not obligatory. It's not that somebody's going to punish you for not being grateful, I hope. But rather to change this more to sort of an insight, yeah, an insight, a recognition of interdependence. Because ultimately, for me anyway, the sense of perhaps in the past not feeling grateful in an obvious way meant that I was feeling very much kind of alone or isolated. Somehow, look at what this person has, look what I don't have. And so the first is it's not an obligatory thing, but rather can we turn this around and really recognize the truth of interdependence? Because, I mean, others may not recognize it around us, but if we recognize it, we are now starting to see, wow, things are really deeply interconnected. Human beings are interbeing with each other, in the words of Thich Nhat Hanh. You know? So, linking perhaps gratitude to then a sense of appreciation. And we're not talking about appreciation of things. And this is where perhaps gratitude can also get a little bit fraught, is if we are just focused on mundane, daily objects, things, situations, happenstances, and such, as opposed to the appreciation that Buddhism tells us to recognize those who have shown you the way, those who have filled you with a sense of wisdom, compassion, loving kindness. Not just taking for granted either a spiritual teacher or a beloved, but really showing appreciation to those who are our deep, deep friends, our friendships. Often Buddhism will talk about gratitude in terms of the mother, being grateful to your parents, but in particular, grateful to your mother who carried you in her womb and gave birth to you, and so on and so forth. And this is like where it begins. Now, this can also be very fraught for a lot of people. If you didn't grow up with a nurturing parent and you just can't get there. In fact, maybe it brings up old traumas. This does happen. I've been in meditation sittings where people say, this does not work for me. And the point here isn't that this is just supposed to be limited to a parent or to your mother, but it's a way in to experiencing a deeper sense of appreciation and authentic gratitude for all beings. This is the Buddhist way, anyhow. So visualizing one's mother maybe is a great doorway into that sense of appreciation and gratitude, but it may not be. It may be we are grateful to a pet, to a dog, to a dear friend, to a grandparent, whoever has shown us that kind of love and affection has opened our heart. Really, this is the key. Opened our heart to appreciation. So, classically, you see loving kindness and then by extension gratitude being an amazing antidote to so many afflictions, so many things, such as resentment, scarcity, as I mentioned earlier. That was a big one for me. Greed. In fact, the three poisons, largely. We can say that the three poisons of greed, hatred, and delusion can all sort of be at least sort of attenuated through gratitude practice. Loneliness, separation, a feeling of dissatisfaction, or a feeling of deep entitlement. All of these are things that gratitude can really come in and help to soften the heart around these problems, these challenges, and open us up. So it's a powerful heart cultivation, yeah. And the other point is to perhaps not focus on gratitude for the things we don't have. I mean, the things we have, the things we have, we may have experienced great abundance in life, yeah. No problem, but it doesn't end there. The point in Buddhism is that gratitude goes so much more deeply into a recognition, a mindful remembering of those who have really benefited us in our lives. This is why remembering, this term remembering, which is how we translate sati, the Pali word for mindfulness, is remembering. So sati is remembering what we have received. There's actually, interestingly, a Japanese practice called Naikan. Has anyone heard of Naikan? No, it was developed by Yoshimoto Ishin it was in sort of the post-war World War II era, specifically around gratitude. And there are three categories here that he too actually starts with one's mother. Yeah, but it really can be anyone. And there are scholars who have looked at this practice and have said, really, this is about opening that doorway to the kindness of others. You know? And the first one is acknowledging, what have I received from this person? It's a simple question. What have I received? And really take it to heart here. And we're not talking about material things. Yeah, we're talking about qualities. Before my father died back in 2017, I knew it would be important for me to sort of just put away all of those old sort of grievances. And we didn't have the sort of the closest relationship growing up. But what I found important was to communicate my gratitude for the things I got from him that I really value. And not things, but inner things. And I told him that many times. There was one occasion where he said, this was shortly before he passed away, where we sort of went out into the gazebo in the yard where he lived in Pennsylvania. And he said, now, while I'm still here, I want to talk to you about all the ways I've been a terrible father. I said, Dad, we don't need to do that. That is so far in the past, we can put that away. It's okay. Instead, I would like to tell you all the things that I received from you that I treasure and that I'm grateful for. I am so glad I did that with him, because it wasn't long after that he died. Powerful medicine, yeah? So the first one is, what have I received? The second is, what have I given? What have I given? This is part of the Naikan practice. And then the third is, what have I done to cause this person sorrow? And so here, what we see is not just gratitude hanging out on its own, but it's part of a process. It's part of a dialectic. It's an exchange, but it's not a transaction. It's a way of acknowledging one's sort of deeper roots in relationship with another person. And gratitude is part of that. And that's the aim of this practice. It's a lovely, very simple practice. Yeah. So another thing, I just have a couple more points, and then I'll introduce the practice we're going to do tonight, the gratitude practice. I wonder, and this is an open question, if gratitude evokes a sense of vulnerability. And I don't know. I'm still kind of feeling my way through this. Gratitude is something that I feel so often now. And whether I feel vulnerable or not, it doesn't matter. But I imagine there may have been a period where it felt like there was a barrier because of this. I don't know. I haven't interrogated that quite yet. But receiving something precious from another who has shown us generosity, how do we feel about this? Yeah. Maybe are we embarrassed, or do we feel unworthy perhaps? Or is it just, I should be able to do all of this by myself. I don't want to need help from anyone. How many people feel that way? So gratitude can be perhaps a little fraught in that. I'm not saying it is. It's an open question. It wouldn't surprise me. in the same way that compassion can sometimes bring up a sense of fear in people, yeah, who have a very hard time feeling vulnerable and opening their hearts. So Buddhism often tells us that we really should cherish being born in this human life, in a human body, in human form. And part of that in the Buddhist cosmology is that there are so many other kinds of manifestations that we could be born as. You know, we could be born as an insect or an animal in the wild, a starving, or not been born in form at all, but sort of be a hungry ghost, sort of wandering in the forest. So being born as a human being is a precious, precious opportunity. So, but whether or not you believe in reincarnation or not, it's this sense that this human life that I'm living is in fact precious, no matter how I feel about it right now in this moment, no matter what emotions are sort of plaguing me. Those are like waves in an ocean, they come and they go. But the recognition of how precious this life is, that it really matters, and not holding on to it with fear, but more so with joy. Good reason for gratitude there. The preciousness, because of impermanence, the preciousness of the moment, or of the things that we share with each other that are so meaningful and special. Within the cognizance of impermanence, we realize these may not last, these will not last, and that can imbue them with even more sense of preciousness and the expression of gratitude. So the notion that things come and go, even the things that we love and the people that we love, is reason to have gratitude in the moment rather than fixate on the loss. Yeah, I think too. The question came up a few days ago about what were the pilgrims grateful for. I mean, part of Thanksgiving for them was being grateful for making it through winters, through the feast, through the food. But to whom were they grateful? And it's nice to think they were grateful for the indigenous people who showed them how to grow, how to survive, how to plant corn and such. And they were clearly grateful to God that they made it through the harsh winters. So you wonder also about the reach, and I don't want to be a downer here. And some of you may be celebrating Thanksgiving, and yes, there's a lot of reason to express gratitude and share it with family and abundance. And I feel strongly about the indigenous peoples who no longer inhabit these lands, and how important it is to also remember, on behalf of our forefathers and mothers, whatever we have received from them, even though they're no longer here. Because, and one of the reasons I bring this up too, is that I know that there is a mourning on Thanksgiving Day happening in Plymouth, a great day of grieving and mourning the loss of indigenous peoples. And so it's this interesting sort of juxtaposition of loss and thankfulness. Now, this paradox is not a true paradox. It's an apparent paradox, in my view, because the complexity of what the European settlers have done to native peoples and continued to do, and even to some extent now continue to do, is very complicated. So, I mean, having a sense of gratitude in the midst of that sorrow, we can hold all of it. And maybe that's my point, is holding all of it, but not denying one side or the other. Anyway, as we were hiking around in the Berkshires over the last few days, um, I kept having this sense about being in these beautiful mountains and going through the trails and watching the beaver lodges there on the side of the water and everything. That in that spaciousness, there at one time had been these people inhabiting this land, how they survived during the winters, and how much that interconnection that they experienced with Great Spirit or really meant something. It meant everything to survive, and then to express the gratitude even to the animals who gave up their lives so they could be fed and be warm. So that level of gratitude is very consistent with Buddhist teaching, recognizing the causes and conditions that led to us having a meal. Yeah, all the beings that created all of the causes and conditions so we could be fed and we could be well and we could be, that too matters. This is not just a superfluous thing that we might do on Thanksgiving Day, but really recognize deeply kind of that deeper sense of the ground of our being as beings.